Read Junk.
Read Junk.
Read Junk
Podcast.
ReadJunk Podcast with your host, my dad.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the ReadJunk Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kremko, and we're finally back with a new episode. This is the first episode of 2019, and it's with director and filmmaker Taylor Morden, who is currently filming two documentaries. Yes, two documentaries. One is Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s, and the other is The Last Blockbuster. Both movies sound awesome. Definitely movies I would want to watch, and I'm definitely going to be seeing it when they come out on video. They both got funded on Kickstarter pretty quickly, too. We talk about the Ska documentary. We talk about the Blockbuster documentary. Talk about the Ska scene, Taylor being in various bands over the last 20 years, touring in Japan. We talk about video stores in general, and then lots of other things. I have a whole list of people that I want to interview this year, so hopefully I'll get around to doing that. This interview was done over Skype. I thought it sounded pretty good, so I'll be doing a lot more of that over Skype, and maybe phone calls too sometimes when it needs to. But for the most part, I'll be doing this over Skype or in person. Nothing beats talking in person, but since it's so hard to get to shows and to meet up for interviews, this is the next best thing, and I can get a lot more interviews done of just doing it over Skype. So let's get started. This is me and director Taylor Morden chatting over Skype. So I'm talking with Taylor, who is the director of Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s, and The Last Blockbuster as well. So where are you in the process of, I guess we'll start with the Ska movie first, Pick It Up. So where you are with the process of right now, are you like knee deep in it?
Yeah, I'm definitely knee deep in it, but we're more in post-production than in production. We have a rough cut. I think it's pretty good, and we're working on filling it out, getting all the archival materials together, making sure we can clear all the songs we want to put in it, and figuring out how we're going to release the thing.
So, I mean, what does it take to do all the the licensing for the music and stuff like that? Do you need to contact the bands or the record labels or?
Yes, all of those things.
All of the above.
Yeah, so there's two sides to every song. There's the songwriting and then the publishing, and so you have to clear both to put music in a movie. So basically, you got to get permission from the bands, and then also, whoever has their back catalog, which in some cases, the record labels close down and stuff gets passed around and bought by other companies. So there's some detective work to find out who even owns it.
I mean, how does that work as far as when you want to put a movie on digital, that stuff like that needs to be worked out, right?
Yeah, we're trying to do that all at the same time. So basically, if we're, say, for example, we're going to ask Less Than Jake for the permission to use 30 seconds of a song, right?
Yeah.
In the movie. And what we have to do, there's a bunch of different licenses you can get, but because distribution is so crazy right now with all these different digital platforms and people are still buying DVDs for some reason, and there's film festivals and theatrical and all these things, we have to come up with a deal that just says, hey, it's okay to use this song in any form. Otherwise, we'd have to have 12 different deals with 50 different bands for 100 different songs, and I wouldn't be able to finish that paperwork in time to get the movie out this year.
So I guess I was going to ask this later on, but so who's working on the movie with you? Do you have kind of a team, or is it just you? Because it seems like it's a lot of work just for one person.
There's definitely a team. There are people helping out. I have other people helping editing. I do have a music supervisor who's helping with that paperwork we just talked about, and I've got an animator and a graphics person and sound mixers, and
good.
There is a whole team.
Oh, that's good. I mean, so when did this start out? When did you I want to make a ska documentary? When did get in your head?
Was September of 2017. I had finished another movie that year that had come out in March, and, had done the film festival circuit, and, it was out on Blu-ray. It was doing fine. And I was done promoting that basically for the moment. And I did a Facebook post asking my friends, what should I do a movie on? What should my next one be about? And most of my friends are from ska bands because I've played in ska bands for over 20 years.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the unanimous response. Should do a ska documentary. And I said, yeah, okay, maybe we'll pick one band or, one era, like one specific, like the summer of 1997 or something. And we'll get very, tell a small story that is attainable. Because it was, I'd only finished one feature film. And so the scope of ska music is pretty big.
Yeah, it's a couple decades, which I was going to ask, like, do you just focus on just the 90s, or like, I mean, you obviously have to go over some of the earlier stuff as well, but
yeah, so we did focus on the 90s, because I'm a 90s kid and those are the bands I grew up listening to and, playing shows with and doing all that. But because there's already some really good documentaries out there about, first and second wave ska. And so there wasn't really one about this era. So we figured we'll make this. And, when people ask, well, how do I get more information about two-tone? We can direct them to some very well-made documentaries.
Yeah, there's been like one or two, I think, around, I guess, this era. There's the Brooklyn Rocksteady one, which I know someone that did that, but it was kind of like just specific for that area. And
that's what I was talking about, the smaller story.
Yeah.
Which I would have loved to have made something like that. It would have been finished by now.
So I guess
that's not a big story, but the scope is more attainable.
So, I mean, when you started doing this, then you're like, oh no, I'm like, this is becoming a lot bigger movie than I wanted it to be, or?
We set out with certain goals, and, we didn't have any budget. So we were, and I say my good friend and bandmate for years who kind of encouraged me to make this. I said, I can do that. It's a huge project, but I'm only going to do it if you come on as a producer and help. So he was with me from the beginning, and we sort of set out calling people we knew, from these bands, and setting up a first bunch of interviews. And we didn't have any money, no budget. So we just drove up and down the West Coast interviewing folks. And honestly, if that had been all we had done and we just put out that content, I think it would have been pretty good. There was an interesting story there. But what happened is that snowballed. You go and you meet with Angelo from Fishbone, and, some of the folks from Save Ferris and Buck 09 and some of these bands, Mike Park, Bucket from the Toasters, and word starts to get out, and all these other bands suddenly open to the idea.
Oh, you talk to this
and
person?
That's when we decided to do the Kickstarter. So that we could afford to go, go to the East Coast and go to all these places and gather this content.
Did you have a Kickstarter in mind from the beginning? Like, you were like, oh, we're just going to do this? Or did you feel like, okay, this can be a lot bigger than I originally wanted, so we should definitely try doing a Kickstarter?
Kind of both. My first movie was a Kickstarter project, and it did fine. It raised, I think, $12,000, which, if anybody out there has made a documentary, that is the same as raising $0. But
you couldn't even get a camera for that.
You can't. Actually, you can now.
Well, yeah, I guess if you're just shooting like DSLR or something.
Right, which is what I shot my first movie on.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's fine.
Nikon or Canon?
What's that?
Nikon or Canon?
At that time, it was Panasonic.
Oh,
it was the G4, GH5 at the end of it.
Okay.
And those are great little, documentary cameras. Not so great for stills, but
yeah. So I mean, were you surprised that you raised the money so quickly, and also that you made as much as you did?
Yeah, totally surprised. We put out a goal. I think the goal was $40,000, and that was in my head, that was like, okay, we can travel and finish filming all of this, and maybe we can afford to, license some of this music, some archival materials. But basically, the way Kickstarter works, and people don't necessarily understand this, is they take a cut, and then you're also on the hook for everything you promise people.
Oh, yeah.
So if we raised $40,000, we raised that in the first, 6 days or something. But that comes with, I have to make $15,000 worth of DVDs and T-shirts and things, and then spend $5,000 shipping it. So $40,000 is really $20,000-ish.
Yeah.
Which is barely enough to finish making the movie. But that's why we set that as the goal. It's just enough. And then when it started to do a lot better, it just opened up more possibilities. We, expand. That's why I can afford to have people helping me here at the end to finish it, instead of doing it all myself.
What do you think the reason was that it got so popular? Is it from bands just spreading the word of mouth?
Yeah, we've been super lucky to have some great support in the ska community, both from the bands and the fans. And, it's just been awesome to see, like bands like Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake were super helpful in getting the word out when the Kickstarter was going. And that makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And now there are thousands of people who know about this project and who are excited to see the movie when it comes out. And that's something you don't get when you make little independent documentary films.
So what made you want to focus on just the 90s? I feel like, was it just like 97, that whole, the popularity of it and then kind of quickly crashing? Is that kind of focused on, what's the main focus of the movie, I guess?
That, to me, was really interesting as someone who knew kind of how we got there, that there were these underground scenes all over the country. And then, every story needs a good villain, right? So there's this whole thing about the major record labels in the 90s taking these subcultures like grunge, like ska, like pop punk, and then later emo, and they would take them and they would pluck a couple bands and skyrocket them up, and it kind of ruins the underground scene for some of the people who are a part of it. And then there was a lot of backlash. I played in ska bands, in the early 2000s when it was really not cool to be in a ska band.
I mean, I've always been listening to ska. I saw it firsthand. I've just seen all these bands that either would change up their sound or they would, or just fold, like, all right, we're done.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. But then you look at the bands that kept playing and kept touring and kept putting out great music. And so it's like, I don't know, separated the wheat from the chaff a little bit.
Yeah, and I said this on the past in my podcast that I was glad about it because there was just so many ska bands back then that it's kind of just like all the good ones are still around, or like all the good ones are coming back anyway if they're, if there's a fan base there. But it seems like to me, like lately, there's just a lot more ska shows, a lot more bands putting out new albums. Like last year, there was just so many ska albums. Do you think we're kind of in a fourth wave right now? I mean, or I don't know if it's like in quotation fourth wave, but it seems like it.
Right. I think the wave theory is a little bit outdated. I think the first and second wave have very clear delineations. It was Jamaican music, and then it spread to Europe, and then the third wave, what we talk about in the movie, is kind of the American almost bastardization of that. But since music is no longer controlled by the major labels, and there's this global, connected internet community, everything feels much more like a slow and steady evolution. It's not like there was ever a time since the third wave exploded that there wasn't ska music. It's been around this whole time, and it's been changing slowly, and people put out new records and all these things, and there's new bands all the time. that are doing really cool stuff. But it's like, it all falls under the umbrella of ska. But there's bands out there that are playing super traditional, rock steady right now.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of bands, rocksteady especially, coming out of the
is
woodwork.
What are we calling that? That can't be fourth wave. That's like first wave-ish. You can't.
First-ish?
Yeah. So I think the wave idea is kind of over if you ask me, but there's a lot of people touting the fourth wave, and it is pretty cool. We got super lucky that all this ska stuff is even happening because, when we started the project back in 2017, there were no Back to the Beach festivals. There were no, interrupters on top 10 Billboard charts. There was no ska in the mainstream. It was still like a weird thing to make a documentary about. Yeah. And so the fact that it did have this big kind of resurgence last year, but it's a lot of nostalgia-based resurgence.
Yeah, it's part of my podcast.
It's huge for us. Yeah, it's huge for us. It couldn't have worked out better. When they announced Back to the Beach, we said, "Oh, we can fly to one place and interview all these bands because they're all going to be there the same weekend."
That was an insane festival, which I wish I saw that, but I didn't since I'm not on the West Coast. Yeah.
But then we went over to Supernova as well, which was also amazing and had, folks from the Scatolites and the Specials and Suicide Machines and MU330 and all these great bands, Spring Heel Jack. It was awesome.
You went down, you flew over to like Japan and stuff too, right?
Yeah, that was not on the Kickstarter backers' dime. That was my producer lives over there. Oh, okay. And the ska band I played in, we toured Japan a lot in the early 2000s when Japan still thought ska was cool after America didn't. And so I wanted to go there. My wife and I just on vacation, but when we were there, we also did meet up with folks from Kumuri and Tokyo Ska Paradise Orchestra. Nice. Who were two of the bigger, 90s ska bands over there, just to get that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that scene over there is huge. It's a shame you couldn't get, like, I don't know if you interviewed anyone from, like, South America, like Mexico, like, because it seems like the Spanish ska scene is really big right now, too, and it has been keeping it alive.
We did, and it's, that was done remotely because I don't speak Spanish. So that's coming in. I'm getting the translations now, but we're definitely including that aspect because, like you said, that's been huge. Since the early 90s, and it's just been growing and growing. And that, to those other countries, it's not like this weird niche music like it is here. It's just music. It plays on the radio in between other pop songs.
That's gotta be weird.
Right? Like if you that's what's happening now though look at the Interrupters, and their single is playing in between Imagine Dragons and whatever else.
I don't listen to the radio, so I can tell just from how big they've gotten. They had their song in a Michael Moore documentary and things like that. So it's definitely the Tim Armstrong push is, and now I think Rat Boy I think is probably going to be the next one that's going to be kind of getting big over here. But I don't know. I can't really describe what kind of style he is, but it's got some scotch, I guess, but. More like hip hop.
Yeah,
punk.
And that's like what I was talking about with Fourth Wave. It's like there's so much music out there that has some ska to it. A little. Like you can tell the artist now grew up listening to it, but it doesn't necessarily,
like the Skints. That's like a really...
Yeah, like the Skints. That's a perfect example.
Because it's like they have one song's punk. Like their new single it's like starts out on nice reggae and then it's like gets all hard.
And then those guitars come in. Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm like, oh, finally some new music.
That was cool though. I like that they just went full 90s like grunge guitar.
Yeah.
Whoa, where did that come from?
What come from? Oh, the grunge?
The guitar.
Okay. I thought someone was going on with the video. Did you get, so you interviewed a bunch of bands. Did you interview anybody that was like in the ska scene, just like fans, like celebrities or comedians or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a little bit of that. I wanted to keep it primarily, an oral history as told by the bands. But what we did, I look at it as, if I'm going to get a fan from the 90s, why not get the folks from the Interrupters? Because they were fans in the 90s.
Right.
The Suburban Legends guys were fans of the other Orange County bands before they were a band. So that's kind of the route we went with, that is talking to some of the younger bands. And I like that I just called the Suburban Legends a younger band. They've been playing for 25 years.
Wait, the Interrupters have?
No, Suburban Legends.
Oh, sorry.
Interrupters started in 2011.
Yeah, I was like, I thought they were a new band.
And like folks like Jeff Rosenstock and
right.
People like that, people who are fans. But, we reached out to a lot, and surprisingly, celebrities who are famous for liking ska, not so hip to talk about it. It's still not quite cool enough to be like
Oscar Isaac.
an okay. I know. We did reach out to him, and I think he's busy doing some kind of Star Wars thing.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, he said.
Now,
he said something nice. He sent us a note back, like,
did he? Oh, that's nice.
Sounds like a cool project, and wish I had time or something like that.
I was seeing a show in the city with my wife like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was for Alan Doyle of Great Big Sea, like Canadian folk. But all of a sudden, like he showed Oscar Isaac shows up, and he like sang one of the songs, because I guess Alan Doyle wrote the song that he did for one of those movies where he sings in it. Not the one that was popular, but it was like one with like Channing Tatum in it and stuff. But he sang that song, and now it's like that in the Bob Dylan song that he did. But yeah, it was really like a nice surprise. Like I'm like, I didn't know he sung anything. and then he was on Jimmy Kimmel and said that he was like, in ska bands, which I guess is on YouTube.
Yeah.
I saw some people like on Reddit, I think when the movie was announced, your movie, that it was gonna be focused like, it's like, they're just gonna be talking about West Coast. I mean, it seems like you're gonna be interviewing a lot of other, East Coast and Midwest and stuff too, right?
Yeah. So that's a big thing we're trying to work around. And I live on the West Coast. I live in Oregon. And so part of that is access. And so early on, our first trailer is mostly West Coast because we couldn't afford to fly anywhere.
Yeah.
But also it's just, it comes down to, I don't know, accessibility. East Coast bands seem to be always out working, touring, like actually doing it. And the West Coast bands maybe have a little bit more time to sit down and chat or things like that. But we're trying our best to keep it real balanced and talk about not just the East Coast and the West Coast, but also the Midwest bands. And, we talked to
Mustard Plug.
Yeah, Mustard Plug's in it. We talked to Rory from the Impossibles. That's a Texas band. There's no Texas ska bands. Come on.
Yes, there's the Suspects. There's a few.
yes, there are several. But you know what I mean? We're trying, and then in the edit, I'm trying to make sure it's not too Orange County heavy. But you also have to look at, from a mainstream story perspective, all the songs that hit the radio, except for really the Boss Tones, were from the West Coast.
Right, that's true. And I wonder why that was. I mean, do you think it was just like K-Rock or something like that? Just heard them at shows.
I wonder if you watch the movie, you might see why that was.
Oh,
one of our main questions is why only this handful of bands, and why, you talk to people like Bucket from the Toasters, and they were working so hard before, during, and after all these other bands getting huge on the radio. And it really is just like a why, a big why.
Yeah.
Why these few bands from this one area? But you can draw a parallel too to Seattle and grunge. why were 4 of the biggest 8 grunge bands from the same city?
Yeah, it's like maybe just the old saying of who you know, I guess.
Right. Well, you got to think about, especially in terms of like Real Big Fish and Save Ferris are a good example, because Real Big Fish was out doing it and they were on the radio as Save Ferris was coming up, but they would play a lot of shows together. And so you get that fan base.
Yeah.
And it's not like piggybacking, but it kind of is. If you're the grunge band that was always opening for Nirvana, well, then all of a sudden, I don't know who that was, maybe Pearl Jam or something, but
yeah, it was always 4 big grunge bands.
Like proximity effect, like
yeah.
You're in a bubble, the bubble gets big, you get lifted up with it.
Yeah, I mean, parts of it is like Warped Tour, like gave exposure to a lot of bands. 120 minutes, that's a lot of ska bands. Like, but even like the Toasters, I think. I think I was a Toasters fan before that, but the other ska bands and even punk bands too. For like on 120 minutes, I would have to tape that because I would never be up. And
me too.
Yeah, so it's
we were so stoked. We got Matt Pinfield in the movie.
Nice.
Talked about, he loved all those ska bands and he really helped a lot of them get their first MTV breaks. Like the first time they would play Buck 09 or Rancid's Time Bomb, stuff like that. It was all, 120 minutes because MTV was playing Nirvana all the time, and it took people like Matt Pinfield to open us up to it. And then later they had that MTV Scouter Day and dressed up Carson Daly like a quote unquote rude boy.
I'm sure you're going to show that in the movie, right?
The expert. Oh, we can't not show it. It's too funny. It's like the prime example of what went wrong.
And I'm sure there's other examples out there, like on just regular talk shows of just cringy interviews.
We found some local news clips of people just, this ska music, I don't know. These kids and they're dancing and their goofy hair.
So you said you've been in like ska bands for 20 years. I really don't know too much about what bands you've been. I know that you were thinking Party Like It Is band.
Party Like It's.
Yeah,
that was
sorry.
That's like a ska cover band I was doing for a while in DC. And they're still playing, but I moved back out west.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to wonder, Mike, you're from West Coast, but they're a DC band.
Yeah, I started that band with my buddy Morgan from Eastern Standard Time, the sax player.
Okay.
And we had this idea we wanted to do, like a Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, but ska, kind of like what the Ska Tune Network guy is doing.
And Rude Boy George too, but they're doing all 80s.
And Rude Boy George, yes. And we were trying to do that, and we did, and then we just started, playing. DC is a big cover band scene.
Yeah.
So we played a lot, and we were making decent money, and then we did some originals, and I'll probably put some in the soundtrack of my movie because I can license it for free, stuff like that.
Hey, it's a good benefit. Did you guys have an album though?
No,
we've
got some songs on Bandcamp and some stuff on YouTube. Covers on YouTube, some originals on Bandcamp.
Because they sounded great, but I'm like, I don't know if they ever had an album come out.
No, well, we did one that we put out in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Super limited. I wanted to tour Japan again, so we booked a tour and made I think it was like a 10-song thing, half covers, half originals.
So what other bands have you been in?
Let's see. Back to the 90s, I played in a Eugene, Oregon band called 007.
Okay.
And then I played in a Eugene, Oregon band called the Vericoasters.
And you played trumpet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly trumpet, a little bit of keyboards, a little bit of singing and guitars when needed.
So
those two bands, we would open, like the Save Ferris, the 5 Iron Frenzy, the Real Big Fish shows. And then started this band called Pocket Face after all these other bands broke up. And that's the band that got signed in Japan, and we went and toured there. 2000, 1 through 2004 or something.
That's got to be surreal, like getting signed to a Japanese label and just like, oh, we're going to go to Japan for a couple weeks to tour. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like
it was very surreal. Yeah. And I was 20 years old at that time.
Wow, that's like perfect.
And so, yeah. And, we were coming right out of, Real Big Fish's second album had hit, and Say Ferris's second album had hit, and we all thought, oh, ska's over. Cheer Up was about to come out and be just a rock album. Stuff like that was happening. But Japan was still into it.
Yeah.
And we did that. And my first show over there, we played this giant music festival, like a ska and punk, almost like a Back to the Beach thing.
Okay.
So we got off the plane. I don't think our record was out, but it might have been out, like in Tower Records and stuff. And we played this festival, with like 20 other bands or something. Super jet lag, get off the plane, and we get on stage, and there's like 12,000 people right there.
Wow.
All going crazy. And it was just, that was it. I was like, I want to tour Japan as often as I can for the rest of my life.
So what happened?
Well, we did for a few years, and then as most ska people know, it's almost impossible to keep 7 or 8 people together.
Yeah.
And so me and the drummer started like a kind of not that good pop punk band just so we could keep doing that.
Yeah.
We put out a record in Japan also, and we kept doing that. And I was doing that off and on through like 2009, 2010. And then moved to DC and started playing in ska bands again, playing trumpet.
So, I mean, when did you get into like directing and stuff like that? Did you do music videos first and then kind of gradually did into features?
Yep. Yeah, I was doing music videos and commercials and really boring Washington, D.C. corporate, go film at the Senate and somebody says something and they just need it on camera. It doesn't have to look good, that kind of stuff.
Did you go to school for it?
Kind of.
Okay.
I went to school for advertising-ish, digital arts.
Okay. I was kind of digital arts, but web design and
yeah.
fine
I
arts.
took web design classes. I took, traditional art classes, and
I took a filmmaking course, and man, I was like at first like, yeah, I'm really gonna like this, and man, I hated it by the end of it.
Oh, I loved it, but then I didn't think it was going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I got out of college and I got into Flash animation because it was the early 2000s.
Yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, I did that.
So, yeah, it was the thing. And I rode that all the way until Apple said they're not going to support Flash anymore, and it killed the format.
Websites still
but
have
that was
it now.
also,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah, but that was also when like the Canon 5D Mark II came out.
Right.
And we all decided, oh, anyone can be a filmmaker now. It's attainable. It's a kind of transition straight from Flash animation to film, just as the internet was getting fast enough to, YouTube was getting really big and video was replacing Flash. So.
Well, now it's HTML5, I guess, but.
Right. And then when I moved back to Oregon from Washington, D.C., there was no commercial work. I moved to a small town, which is where the Last Blockbuster is.
So you're in Bend, Oregon?
Yeah.
That's, do you know Larry and his Flask?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like,
everybody does.
Well,
it's a small town.
Yeah, well, I was wondering because I was like looking up where you live or where the Last Blockbuster is, and I'm like, oh, that's Larry and Fast. They live there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were nice guys. I filmed them doing like a session once in
oh, nice.
in the city. So, yeah, that's like I used to do like an acoustic session website called Before the Concert, and then they were like only the second or third person that I filmed, but it's still the most watched video.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, because they're just, I mean, they
I've
do
only
it all
met
the
them
time.
a couple times.
Yeah.
But they're very nice.
Yeah.
Everybody here is very nice. The only real downside is that it's a little bit smaller of a town and it's all white people.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a bummer. It's one of those small Oregon towns that hasn't quite caught up. you know, a lot of pickup trucks, shotguns, and stuff like
but
that.
I guess it's a good transition to talk about your other documentary, like you're not busy enough.
Right.
So now you're doing the Last Blockbuster, and
yes,
and you also did that for Kickstarter as well, right?
Yeah. So I also started that one in 2017, but I thought I had plenty of time. I moved here and drove by the sign that said Blockbuster, and I thought, that's weird. They haven't taken the sign down yet. Because in other towns, that's a real thing. You'll see a Blockbuster sign, you'll go, and it'll be an abandoned place, or it'll be a dry cleaner.
Yep.
It's never still a Blockbuster. And I went in, and it was like nothing had changed. It was like 2002 or something. Everything, it smelled the same. It felt the same.
Did it still have VHS or was it DVD?
It's all DVD. They have a little bit of Blu-ray, but it's mostly DVD, which drives me nuts as a filmmaker. I'm like, why don't you stock Blu-rays? People can play them.
I'm always bitching when I'm reviewing movies is that they still send me DVDs. Like they're still producing DVDs where everything is on HD now. It's like, stop it, you cheap fucks.
Right. And I got a bunch of friends, who get like for your consideration screeners for the Oscars and the Emmys and things like that. And they're all on DVD. Yeah. And it's like, what is wrong with you? Just send people a digital code.
Yeah.
Nobody has time to watch like a 720 or 480p video disc. Ugh.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, but like along those same lines, we're putting out the Blockbuster movie on VHS because we don't care.
It's retro. You got to go with it.
It's retro. There's something about putting a movie about Blockbuster in a Blockbuster clamshell case and then having it available for rent at Blockbuster.
And you'll see it in the used bin somewhere else.
Oh, God, I hope so. To put this movie out and then see it like in the DVD section at Goodwill, which is where we found all our Blockbuster movies that we're using.
Oh, wow.
That'd be amazing.
So you went in the store and like, I need to make a movie about this or you just like, it was, the one that closed down in Alaska, and then there was only like one or two, and then, so now it's the last.
So what I did is I started filming at the one here in Bend because I lived here and I had free time. I just talked to the owner and the manager, and they're lovely people. The owner has run this store since the early 90s.
Wow.
It was an independent thing, and then it got turned into a Blockbuster and now has outlasted all the rest. But at that time, there were still 12 Blockbusters left.
Wow.
So I thought, that's fine. I'll just film here and see what happens, documentary style.
Yep.
We'll check in every couple months and see how they're doing. My main question was always like, who are these people that are still renting movies? Even in 2017, now it's 2019.
Well, did you go like guerrilla style and go out when they're coming out of the store and go, what'd you buy? What'd you buy?
Yeah. What'd you get? Why are you here?
Have you heard of Voodoo or Google or iTunes?
Yeah. And then last summer, right in the middle of filming the Ska movie, just got back from Back to the Beach. I'm starting to cut all this stuff, and I've done a big shoot with the Aquabats and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm super busy. We'll just never get back to this Blockbuster thing. And then I got an email, I think, from the manager letting me know that the Alaska stores were closing and they were going to be the last one. And that a lot of people were calling about doing a documentary.
Oh.
And I said, we already started. Can we have first dibs? So we drew up some paperwork and got our claim on it.
Do you have to file that at the copyright office or something, or?
No, we just got the story rights from the people involved.
Okay.
Basically like you sign this thing and you won't tell other people your story.
Right.
So when other people come and want to do a movie, I can't stop people from filming the outside of the building or even, telling a story about Blockbuster, but I can protect basically the relationship we built over a year and a half.
So,
which was just luck. If the Alaska store had been the last one, I wouldn't have any story to tell.
Yeah, I mean, would you just scrap the whole project then?
I was ready to, yeah.
Yeah.
And we jumped into the Kickstarter more, to stake a claim and get a public thing out there saying, hey, we're making this. And it did its job really well in that regard.
Yeah.
We didn't raise that much money compared to the ska movie, but what we did raise is awareness, and we got a lot of, sort of outside investors and help and other production companies wanting to jump on board so that I don't have to do it all myself because I'm a little bit busy.
Yeah, just a little bit. Is it more of a focus on Blockbuster, or is it in video stores in general? Because that's like a documentary in and of itself. Just the video stores of all.
And there are some of those that are really good. There's documentaries about VHS, how it changed the media landscape, and there's indie movie store documentaries. What we're doing is we're using this store and how it was independent, got sort of not forced, but pressured into becoming a Blockbuster.
That sounds about right.
And then all the rest closed, and now this little independent store, there's some irony there of like the big guy comes in and crushes the little guy, but then they outlast the big guy.
It's probably going to happen with Amazon, right?
That's what people keep saying. They say this is all cyclical and it's all happened before and it'll happen again.
There's an Amazon bookstore by me in Garden State Plaza Mall in New Jersey. And it's like, I just find it ironic that they drove all these other bookstores out of business and now they have their own bookstore. Like, you guys are a bunch of douches, but I'll still go to the store.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
So we're using that as like a lens. We're also going to tell the corporate Blockbuster story, how they grew so quickly and why they went out of business. And we're sprinkling in a bunch of celebrity anecdotes about renting movies to keep it entertaining.
Yeah, I saw that you were interviewing a few comedians this week. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to keep it funny and like lighthearted because the business story is, it's interesting, but it's not, I wouldn't call it entertaining. So it helps if you throw in,
it was kind of similar to Colin Hanks' movie about Tower Records. It was kind of like entertaining.
Very
yeah.
From a premise standpoint, his is more business focused. Ours, we're gonna really kind of dive into the characters, the people who work at this last store, and the people who shop there.
It's
a little bit.
Did anyone have any stories about like how they like any techniques of how to get a video at the store, like try to hide it behind other movies? I remember doing that.
Yeah,
but I didn't have.
And then we had
had
some celebrities talk about going in and like moving their movie to the front. Like, I think Jamie Kennedy talked about how for Scream he's not on the front cover, but he's on the back, so he would go in and flip them all over.
That's funny. Or asshole kids like myself would go put like the porn movies behind other like children movies or something like that, so the parents grab the wrong ones.
That's a big topic too, because Blockbuster never had an adult section.
Well, I guess in video stores in general, yeah, because I didn't have a Blockbuster for me until like later on, and I was like 20, 25 minutes away. So when all the other stores didn't have it, I would have to go, all right, let's make the trek up there. So it's got to have it, but then it was like more money, I think. Or then like late fees.
Blockbuster was always more expensive, and you'd always have late fees. So it's like, do I really want to pay $18 in late fees just so I can Die Hard 4? It's not even that good.
Did you talk to anybody that had like the longest or like the most expensive late fee? Like have you tried figuring that out?
No, that's a good topic for research. I'm sure it's public information somewhere.
But I wonder if, I think at some point people just like gave up and then just kept it and then go back to the store. Yeah.
I think we were just talking to Ron Funches, the comedian.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was talking about how the store near him, just 5 years ago when they all went out of business, had a going out of business sale. And instead of buying movies and video games, he just rented a bunch and waited. And then they went out of business. He never had to bring them back.
That's funny.
So he wins. It was a good strategy. If you ever see a video store going out of business, don't buy them, just rent them. And you get them for 99 cents.
Or in my case, just start up a movie website that reviews movies and then get them for
And
free
then
that way.
they get mailed to you.
Yeah. Why do you think I've been
That
doing
is-
my website for 20 plus years? It's like I get free movies and albums, so it's a good scam.
It's a really good scam. I'm a fan.
Did you interview anybody that worked for the store that they just wanted to work at the store so they can get all the movies for earlier and then keep them later? And I feel there's some employees like that.
Paul Scheer from Veep and Disaster Artist and stuff like that. He worked at Blockbuster for a while before he was on TV, and he definitely was doing it so that he could get the movies early and the video games early, and he would get them in shrink wrapped, open them, watch them, or make a copy or something, and then re-shrink wrap them and put them back on the shelf. This is a great trick if you work in retail.
Wow, I did not know that.
I play video games for the whole weekend before they come out, and then shrink wrap them and put them back on the shelf.
That used to drive me crazy, like getting to that store and just nothing would be there, like that I wanted. It's even when I called ahead, like sometimes it would just nothing would be there when I just called 5 minutes ago. Well, someone took them.
Yeah, and then you got to have them go check the drop box.
Yeah,
see if somebody just dropped it off.
Is there anything in the back?
Yesterday I went to Blockbuster because I go there often now.
Yeah,
and they have, that Neil Armstrong movie First Man.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Just came out.
Yeah,
and like always, they have like 50 copies on DVD, but they only have 5 Blu-rays or whatever.
Why?
They're always out. Well, because Bend is not the most technologically advanced town. And it was all out, but I had them check the Dropbox, and there was 1 Blu-ray in there. So,
the tricked work.
But I had forgotten about the trick. The guy at the counter had to remind me because, I haven't used that since 2002 or something.
I think people are really gonna like this movie just because of not just Blockbuster, but also just video stores in general. Where like mine was Joe's Video.
Yeah. I love it.
But I think you got a good documentary on your hands. I mean, what was I gonna say? Do you think video stores are gonna make a comeback, or do you like the way vinyl has been coming back, like with some record stores? Or you think it'll be like?
We've been talking to people about that, and nobody thinks that it will really. It's like a novelty thing because the video version of vinyl is VHS, and whereas vinyl has like a nice sound quality to it, it's people like it. You can get a good hi-fi system. It's a visual experience. VHS is terrible to watch a movie on. I've been doing it for the last couple of weeks. For the movie, I set up a VCR and I got an old TV and I'm putting in videotapes, and it's just excruciating. The quality is so bad, and
the lines in the video, and I still have a VCR as well because I still have some ska bootlegs, so I've been I put them all on YouTube, but
I've been digitizing stuff like that, and it's like even that process, because you have to do it in real time, is so annoying.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll ever come back because of that, but there's a huge VHS collector's market, and like there are certain movies that will never come out.
Those Disney ones are just rare gems. Those ones with the white cases, or like those ones.
Yeah. Or like indie movies that just, they never got distribution past VHS. No one's ever going to digitize it. And you find this weird, knockoff Gremlins copy movie. It's just like, I have to watch this. This is crazy fascinating.
I'm sure if there's going to be a VHS store, that's going to be in like Williamsburg or somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Portland.
Rough Trade.
Sure.
Rough Trade's going to open up a spin-off store.
Totally.
Now, speaking of VHS, is there a VHS cover that you think really stands out, or maybe even something in the back of the cover that was like an iconic videotape?
Oh man, I've been looking at them more lately, and I think, like I said, I'm a '90s kid, but
Yeah.
VHS was more of an '80s thing for me. It's tough. Those original, like the Star Wars boxes with the paintings on them,
Right.
before
Yeah.
they redid them.
From Drew
Those are,
Stodden. Yeah.
yeah, those are iconic. I mean, I didn't know too many people who didn't have those in their house when we were kids. And then like the ones, let's see, what do I have here in this pile of VHS? I feel like the cover to Porky's is pretty iconic.
Yeah, that's an iconic one. Yeah. E.T.
Empire Records. E.T. Yeah, E.T. is huge.
E.T. and Jaws. Yeah. Oh, the Spielberg.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Fast Times, yes. Terminator and Terminator 2.
Oh yeah, T2.
I remember seeing.
Great. But that was the thing, is like the box art was such a big part of it.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have anything else to go off of. Now people stand in Blockbuster and they like look up reviews of the movies and check to make sure it's not on Netflix before they rent it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess before that it was like, the employees pick of what movies they liked, and that's what you had to go by. That was the early Rotten Tomatoes.
Right. Well, that's a big thing for our movies. You used to have to interact with people, and now it's a computer that tells you, oh, you like Terminator 2? You'll probably also like this.
As we're speaking over the video and not in person.
Right, but you used to have to ask the person at the store, hey, I really like Terminator 2. What else might I like? And they'll say, oh, you'll really like
Debbie
whatever,
Does Dallas.
Die Hard. Debbie Does Dallas, sure.
If you work the store at Clerks.
Say, oh, I don't like that one, and work it out.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like, well, did you like it because of, Schwarzenegger? Because we also have Commando or whatever.
Oh, Commando. That was such a good one.
But now it's all algorithms. They still have an employee section at the Blockbuster here.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really fun. It almost makes me want to work there.
Is it just like a few people or just one person's picks?
I think the managers each get one. So I think they have 2 managers right now, and there's 2 staff pick end caps. But it's just like, I don't know. I always wanted to work at a video store, and I never got to. So this is the closest I'll probably ever get.
I wanted to work at a movie theater, and then I was like, when I got to that age, they're like, oh, so I went and go apply. Like, oh, do you like working on weekends? I'm like, no. Like, all right, I don't think this is right for you. I'm like, all right, I'll just keep going to the movies then.
They run those ads now at like Regal that say, we're hiring, get your start in the movie business. It's like, I don't think you understand how the movie business works.
I do know one person that worked at the movie theater, and now he's actually a documentary journalist, reviewer, yeah, Chris Campbell.
Cool.
Yeah, but I remember he used to work at movie theaters and stuff just to see all the movies, and I would always fight with him because we didn't agree on anything.
Yeah, I mean, those were the jobs. Yeah. Blockbuster and like the movie theater and the record store. Those were the places I always wanted to work, and I was never a cool kid. And I feel like only the cool kids got to work at the record store, and the weirdos got to work at the movie theater. And I just didn't. I just had to work at my dad's restaurant, washing dishes.
Well, I didn't even work. My parents were like, nah, you don't need to work. I'm like, okay.
Lucky.
So started a website up in my senior year of high school and haven't looked back.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been that long. Since 97 or 97 when I started my website.
Wow.
Yeah. It used to be called Ska Punk and Other Junk back then. Now it's ReadJunk. But, so have you run into a documentary idea that someone else claimed or that you wanted to do and then you had to scrap it? I mean, I guess the Blockbuster was somewhat close to it. That someone was trying to do that for you, I guess.
Yeah, no, a lot of people tried to claim it, and I was just lucky to have started a year earlier and been able to basically just say that, hey, look, we're a year in, you can make yours, but ours is going to come out soon. So
yeah,
kind of a good luck luck to you. Now that we've got some celebrities in it, it's kind of solidified as like, we're making the blockbuster documentary. You can make a blockbuster documentary, but it won't be. And the same with the ska one, you know.
Yeah.
People can make ska. In fact, there was a guy working on one when we were working on ours, and I talked to him and said, you know, this is very similar, and I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. I'm passionate about this subject matter. And to me, it was always like, it doesn't matter so much if there are two docs about the same thing. That's just more content for the people who care about it. Like, look right now, the Fire Festival documentaries, one on Hulu, one on Netflix. People are watching them both. If you watch one and it's interesting, you go watch the other one. Or if you only have Netflix or you only have Hulu, you still get to see one.
Yeah, so, it's the same thing with everyone releasing a different version of Jungle Book in the last 3 years.
Right. Or Deep Impact and Armageddon.
Right.
These things happen. You know, there's been a couple of giant shark movies lately.
The Prestige and then Illusionist.
Yeah.
Both good movies, though.
Totally. Ants and A Bug's Life.
Oh, well, Bug's Life, totally.
Came out the same summer, I think.
Yeah. It's like, two ant movies? Like, don't, like, studios talk to each other?
Well, they do, and that's the problem. The problem is one person goes around and pitches it to everybody,
right.
And one studio buys it, and then the other studio just says, well, we don't need to pay him. We'll just make our own.
I don't know. The Ants one just looked not that great. Pixar was...
Yeah, but, you know, Woody Allen.
Right. So is there any... So after these two movies, when they're finally done, what do you feel like tackling next? Do you want to stick with documentaries? Do you want to do, like, an actual, like, featured film?
Yeah, I've got some ideas for features. I've got some scripts, quote unquote, in development, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm working on a short that we're filming here in Bend in the next few months because I don't have enough going on. But I like making shorts. I like doing the film festival thing with short films. It's more fun. I kind of prefer short films to features in a lot of ways, both from making and watching standpoints.
Okay.
I think we live in the world of like
ADD,
shorter attention spans, and if you can tell a compelling story in 12 minutes instead of 90, why not? You know. I also like the horror anthologies and stuff where it's 10-minute films instead of 100-minute film. But I'd definitely be interested in working on a feature. I predict that over the next 2 years, I'm going to be pretty wrapped up in these two documentaries. Once they come out, it becomes, you know, a year's worth of promotion and
right,
working on distribution and trying to get these films out there, which is like half the work. Half the work is making it, and then the other half is marketing it and doing all that.
So when do you anticipate the Pick It Up and then the Last Blockbuster to come out?
Pick It Up, I'm really gunning for this spring.
Okay.
I think.
Back to the Beach Festival or something?
That wouldn't be bad. It's still up in the air, although the lineup this year is a little bit less ska.
Yeah.
But
one day is pretty good, and then it's like
Blink-182's headlining, and we got Travis Barker in the movie, so I think their fans would.
Yeah, I think
Blink-182 fans and ska fans have a lot of crossover.
Yeah, I was a Blink fan. I remember seeing them my first Warped Tour in '96. They were playing in this little tiny stage.
Yeah.
And then the next year they're playing on a huge stage.
Yep.
That's, I guess, how it goes with Warped Tour.
But I think doing like a festival run this summer and fall, and maybe getting the Blu-rays out later this year and getting all this Kickstarter stuff out to the backers.
Yeah, I bought that shirt for Parker's shirt that he did. I'm like, I want to own something that he drew.
Yeah, I'm so excited about stuff like that. That's what I mean about the ska community being so supportive and everything. Yeah. It's just like tight-knit, you know?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I still do my site. It's like I want to promote the things that I like and the bands and then the movies and stuff as well. So it's when you got a ska movie, I'm definitely going to go gun-ho and promote the hell out of it for you.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Everything helps, you know?
And then in Blockbuster, you're thinking probably the the end of the year or next year?
It's hard to say. Part of it is real time, waiting to see what happens. The movie's only as good as its ending, and they're still open right now, and
Oh, so you're waiting for it to close.
Well, I'm not waiting for it to close, but there is a big company that owns the name that they have to license it from, and their renewal comes up soon, and they, there's at least a big will they, won't they moment,
right,
that we have to wait for. Because if they do have to close in the next year, that's an interesting ending, and if they get to stay open, that's also an interesting ending.
Yeah.
But if nothing happens, that's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe just wait it out, get more interviews. I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's sort of building some momentum. We're kind of shopping it around to some of the studios and TV stations and stuff to see. I think right now we're just going to put together a rough cut from what we have and see if we can't get it an actual release somewhere.
All right. Well,
so there's no way of knowing.
I can't wait for both of these movies, though. I mean, both of them sound great. Right up my alley. Where can people check out, what are some of your social links and websites and things like that?
Pick It Up is just at Ska Movie on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And then Last Blockbuster is at Last Blockbuster Movie on all those. Cool. Because somebody already took Last Blockbuster. Trying to be a funny head.
All right. So, well, that was great talking to you.
Yeah, and we've got skymovie.com.
All right.
Lastblockbustermovie.com as well, which have links to all the social on them.
All right. I'll be anticipating my T-shirt, and I don't know if I got the Blu-ray. I know I got the T-shirt, though. Maybe I got the download. That's what it was.
Sure. A download and T-shirt was very popular in 2018. Nobody wants a thing to put on a shelf. They just want something to wear and to watch the movie.
Well, it's just space. I mean, I have 2 bookcases of just Blu-rays sitting there.
Yeah.
I ended up doing last year and the year before that. I ended up just wiping out, selling a lot of my movies and then just putting everything on Vudu. So now I have over 900 movies in Vudu, which hopefully that never it's Walmart, but hopefully it doesn't go
so
under
risky.
or something. Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money spent into it as well.
Yeah. I did that too a while back with Netflix. I was like, oh, I don't need this anymore. It's on Netflix. And then a couple years later, Netflix pulls it off. I'm like, oh, I wish I still had those DVDs.
Right. I just bought The Office because I heard it was going to be going off Netflix. I'm like, and I've just started rewatching it again. So I'm like, all right, it's on sale. So cut The Office. So I've just been. Right.
Well, that is the beauty of it. If you need to rebuy it, it's $1 now.
Well,
for old DVDs, at least at the
DVDs,
Blockbuster in the used bin.
Well, that's the thing. I had them all. I got them all sent to me for free, but then I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with all these movies? I'm just selling them.
Yeah,
it's I get some money for it, but it's you're not supposed to sell this stuff. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with it?
Right.
But all right, this is a good conversation. Thanks a lot for talking with me, and have a good day, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
you too.
Later. Bye-bye.